Crisis talks continue between Matiang'i and the clergy over arson in schools. The opposition presents its submissions over the proposed electoral reforms. And a type of polio is eradicated in Kenya, but is there really cause for celebration yet? Well, a very, very good afternoon to you. Many thanks for joining us on the KTN Newsdesk on this 28th day of July 2016. Always a pleasure to have you tuned in. A lot has been happening in the country and beyond. We have it all lined up for you. My name is Akisa Mandera. That ugly sin in schools is what takes precedence in this bulletin at this hour. Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is this morning meeting representatives from religious groups as he continues to consult following the wave of unrest in schools. The CS is also scheduled to meet the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, and he urged students, teachers and school administrators to be calm and avoid confrontation and destruction of property by deliberately addressing issues of concern to the school community. Fires have been reported in at least 105 schools in the country this year, with at least 10 dormitories burnt in the last 36 hours alone. Well, and that meeting between the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Fred Matiang'i, and the clergy at the KICD, our reporter Michelle Ngele has been following up that for us. She's now joining us live for an update of the same. Thank you very much for joining us, Michelle. Good afternoon. What exactly are the clergy's submissions or requests to the Cabinet Secretary?
Well, Akisa, it is a closed-door meeting. They did mention that the content of this meeting today is too sensitive for the meeting to be held in public. But we can speculate because we do have members of the clergy. We have Jackson Olesapit, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, leading the members of the clergy. We also have representatives from the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association. And as much as this meeting here is expected to come up with solutions to the spate of arsons in schools, we do also expect a lot of heated exchanges. Remember, Education CS Fred Matiang'i did point an accusing finger at school principals for being involved in examination cartels, which he says are responsible for the spate of arson in schools that is currently going on. On the other hand, the school principals are pointing an accusing hand at the Cabinet Secretary for the radical reforms that he's made in the education sector, extending the second term by about 2 weeks, removing all social engagements in the third term, including prayer days and visiting days and half-term breaks. And this, according to teachers, is affecting the students, which is why they have gone on these strikes and arsons. The clergy, on the other hand, says that moral decadence is to blame for this. And so they're asking for a review of the religious education syllabus in schools, as well as asking Matiang'i as well to review those reforms. But one more issue that is to be talked about here today in this meeting, Akisa, is the fact that teachers are now complaining that they're helpless when it comes to disciplining unruly students. They say it's becoming very hard for them to mete out any form of punishment because the students are protected by the law. And here they're referring to Section 36 of the Basic Education Act, which ruled out all physical punishment as well as mental harassment, and prescribes a punishment of about a fine not exceeding facing 100,000 shillings or 6 months imprisonment. And so teachers are complaining that as much as they're being blamed for not being able to discipline students, it is not in their power. The law does not allow them to discipline these students. So it is possible that they are now reopening the debate into the reintroduction of corporal punishment in our schools, which was banned in about 2002 when former President Mwai Kibaki came into power. But Akisa, the teachers here also say that the law is too lenient on minor offenders. Remember, Fred Matiang'i has been very categorical that any individual linked to these fires will be arrested and arraigned in court. So far, we've had well over 100 students arrested. More than 40 of them have already been arraigned in court, but many of them are under the age of 18, and so they are treated as minors. Teachers are complaining that the laws governing minor offenders are not strict enough, and that's why the school fires are continuing despite these arrests already having been made. And now teachers too are among individuals that have been arrested. And just a few minutes ago, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers did have a press conference, and the chairman, Omboko Milembe, has now given the government a 7-day ultimatum that the teachers that have been arrested in connection with the fires in schools be released, else the secondary school teachers will down their tools. So that's another crisis that we're looking at. Fred Matiang'i has remained very categorical that his rules and decisions will remain, and so it is unlikely that he will bow to that ultimatum by Kupet, and it is also likely that we are staring into a situation where secondary school teachers will go on strike. Akisa.
Well, Michelle, as you've rightly put it, CS for Education Fred Matiang'i has time and again said that he will not review the rules and reforms that is put in place since he became the Education Cabinet Secretary, and the clergy as well and some other factions are seeking to ensure that he tones down, so to speak, on the kind of rules he's made. Do we expect that they would come to some sort of an agreement by the end of today?
Well, that is highly expected, but they've been in this closed-door meeting for about 3 hours now. No word yet on whether they have reached any agreements, but we do expect that the solutions or recommendations that will come out of this meeting today will be added to recommendations of the meeting that took place yesterday between the Teachers Service Commission and the secondary school heads, just in a bid to find a solution to this problem. But remember, Akisa, even if the ministry does come up with a solution to end this spate of arson in schools, there is a bigger problem now. We've had well over 120 schools that have already gone up in flames, and students seem to be very adamant in continuing with these arsons, but well over 6,000 students, among them Form 4 candidates, are at home. The ministry has given a very stern warning to secondary head schools that they should not admit students who are from schools that have been affected by these fires, in a bid to stop the fires from spreading to schools that have not been affected. And so that leaves to question the fate of the Form 4 candidates that are currently in school, especially considering that the Ministry of Education has announced that the arsons, the spate of arson has not affected the KCSE examinations, and the examinations will continue as scheduled. And so that's another crisis that we do expect the ministry to address. Akisa.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much for giving us that update. Michelle Ngele is joining us from the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, where the Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is held up in a meeting with the clergy and other stakeholders on the way forward to solving the school crisis or the wave of unrest that is being witnessed in the country as of now. And of course, just a few minutes ago, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers has given CS Matiang'i, Fred Matiang'i, an ultimatum of 7 days to close down schools, or they will go on a national strike. On the line, we have the Deputy Secretary General of Kupet, Moses Nthurima. Let's just speak to him and find out what the issues Kupet has specifically with the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Good afternoon, Moses. Many thanks for joining us. A 7-day ultimatum, is it not a very short time? Moses, thank you very much for joining us on Newsdesk. We understand that Kuppet has given CS for Education Fred Matiang'i a 7-day ultimatum to close down schools. Don't you think this is too short a time, and why have you reached this such kind of a decision? All right, we're still trying to get hold of Moses Nthurima. He is the Deputy Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers. And of course, they've just issued a 7-day ultimatum for the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Fred Matiang'i, to close down schools, a failure to which they will call for a national or a nationwide strike. This is something we keep following. We're keeping an eye on for you. We're still trying to get hold of Moses Nthurima. I understand we now have him on the line. Good afternoon, Moses. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Newsdesk. What issues does Kuppet have with the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Fred Matiang'i, and how he is running this particular sector?
One is that the minister is issuing directives from the roadsides without involving the stakeholders, and there is a serious conflict between principals and the students now that the student believes that principals have become thieves, and now the student can act in any manner to express that discontent. We are asking the minister to organize a stakeholders meeting so that we help each other to get into the bottom of this thing. Otherwise, the minister is trying to avoid the stakeholders, and now he's doing things alone. And you see, the Ministry of Education and the education sector cannot be run by one person. It needs a concerted effort of all the characters who are involved to ensure that everything is on the right footing.
So, with that kind of directive that you have issued, what exactly do you seek to achieve as Kuppet?
No, we want to ensure that our schools have safety, our teachers are safe in the institutions. Right now, institutions of learning have become danger zones, and we may not be sure of the safety of both learners and teachers. So what we are saying is that the minister close the school as a strategic retreat to ensure that we have time to address this problem.
Well, in the past, this is not the first time the issue of closing down schools has come up, and we've seen the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Fred Matiang'i, say that he will not allow for the closure of all schools because it will affect some schools that are not even on rampage, if I can call it that. They do not have that kind of unrest. According to you, is that a valid argument from the CS?
It is not, because this is not the first time we are closing our schools after waves of strike. These are stopgap measures that are meant to reduce tension in the schools and to ensure that the students, have time to relax, because these are students who are overworked and they can react in any manner. So the minister, I think, is not just trying to tell us that he can't close schools, because this has been done over the years whenever there are unrest in schools. This is not the first time. He's not the first minister, nor the last, who will close the schools because of waves of strikes and destructions.
Would that be the solution to the kind of problem the sector is facing right now?
No, we need time as stakeholders to address this problem. And again, because of this, there is this tension about exams, there is tension about, the conflict between the administration in schools and students. We need time to heal. Healing time means the students that are at home, they will also meet parents and other people. And when they go back, I believe that we shall have found a solution about this problem. So this is not the first time that we are getting school closed because of unrest.
All right. Thank you very much, Moses, for joining us and giving us that update or a perspective into that. Moses Nthurima is the Deputy Secretary General of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers, and they are calling for they've issued a 7-day ultimatum to the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Fred Matiang'i, to close down all the public schools, failure to which they will call for a nationwide strike. Well, away from that, 4 Kenya Defence Forces soldiers and a civilian were injured this morning when suspected Al-Shabaab militants attacked Fino town in Mandera County. The attack started at Fino at around 2 a.m. and spread to Sheikh Barrow location. Local Administrator Eric Oronyi confirmed the attack and said a Safaricom mast was destroyed, cutting off the town from the rest of the county. According to the government official, there was a fierce exchange of fire between security officers and the militants before they were repulsed. The situation has normalized as of now. All right, and moving on now, the opposition maintains that the commissioners of the electoral body, IEBC, must be sent home. CORD says IEBC commissioners must be held accountable for the failure of the electronic vote compiling system and must therefore not be allowed to conduct the 2017 general elections. The coalition officials who gave their views to the Parliamentary Select Committee today further said the Supreme Court should handle a presidential petition within 60 days and not the current 14 days. Let's now cross over there and listen in to the proceedings that are taking place at the County Hall.
EBC ICT department is competent or not? The answer is the IBC ICT department is extremely competent. As to whether they're able to make competent decisions or not into procuring appropriate technology, I mean, that's another question. They had an opportunity to design a competent solution despite their competence, and they really did fail to procure the right EVIT solution, the right results transmission solution. So it's a question of competent people really not living up to their competence. Thank you.
Honorable Khalwale also had a question regarding the desirability of making voting a civic duty. I think the experience that we have had as a country regarding how elections determine our stability as a society and as a democracy, it might not be a bad idea to start considering how to ensure that the results of every election is representative of what the entire nation wants. I do think that would enhance the stability of our democracy. Whether that would be done by coercion or we should look for other ways to persuade people to vote, I think the debate would be on the methods that we use to ensure that people vote. But in terms, as a principle, I think we should, as a nation, pursue the desirability of ensuring that as almost everybody makes their voice known in respect of the constitution of the government. The next round of questions came from Honorable Bitu Zalachi. The first one was what we do about the 9.2 million voters. We have proposed that there should be a linkage between the registrar of persons and the voter register. If that were adopted, then it would mean that without incurring any expense of going to the ground.
All right, proceedings there at the County Hall on the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee, and officials from CORD are still giving in their submissions. Later on, we expect the Jubilee side. But as of now, let's now take a short break. Do not go too far. We still have a lot lined up for you on KTN Newsdesk.
Hello there, I'm Alex Chamwada. This time I'm in Philadelphia to cover the Democratic National Convention where Hillary Clinton will be endorsed as the presidential candidate and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine as the running mate.
According to the news, we are on the brink of a historic, unprecedented moment.
We will tell you about the party's campaign platform in comparison with what happened at the Republican convention where Donald Trump was endorsed as the presidential candidate and Mike Pence, Governor Indiana, as the running mate.
If I don't win the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, then I'm just going to stay at my hotel, and it's practically, I want to be on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Plus, lessons about the U.S. electoral process.
Good evening, I'm Joroge Mwaura. The debate on the appropriate political system for Kenya was recently contributed to by a section of the clergy. Bishops Alexander Muge and Lawi Imathi of the CPK and Methodist Church respectively joined other Kenyans in advocacy for a one-party state. The head of the Church of the Province of Kenya, Archbishop Anasis Kuria, was interviewed today by our staff reporter Kathleen Openda on the stand of his church.
Nia yetu ni kujenga daraja ya urafiki na undugu na umoja baina ya jamii zote za taifa letu la Kenya, watu wa kutoka jamii zote, kutoka dini zote, kutoka sehemu zote za taifa letu la Kenya. Ndio munaona tunasema ya kwamba tutafanya kazi na watu wa kusini, tutafanya kazi na watu wa kaskazini na wa magharibi na watu wote wa taifa letu la Kenya, kwa sababu tunataka Kenya iliyounganika ikawa moja, Kenya ambayo Wakenya wote watajihisi ya kwamba wao ni Wakenya. Na hiyo ndiyo nia yetu, ya kwamba siasa ya Kenya, uongozi wa Kenya usiwe tena kwa misingi ya kabila ama dini ama mahali mtu anatoka, iwe kwa misingi ya sera na ile mipango tuko nayo ya kubadilisha taifa letu la Kenya.
Welcome back. You are watching KTN Newsdesk, and before we get into sports, Kenya today destroyed its last stockpiles of wild polio viruses at the Center of Virus Research at the KEMRI headquarters here in Nairobi, and this is to meet the World Health Assembly resolution to contain type 2 polio virus. This is a discussion we'll be having with Dr. Mercy Korir, who is our health news correspondent on the second beat of this bulletin, on what this really means for Kenya. Out to Poland now, where Pope Francis stumbled and fell a short while ago as he conducted Mass, which was being broadcasted live on live TV during his visit to that country. The pontiff was walking past the altar at the beginning of the event at Zetocho in Poland when he was seen to partially collapse to the ground before being assisted to his feet by fellow clergy. He then continued to celebrate Mass. Pope Francis is on a 5-day trip to the Krakow area of southern Poland. Pope Francis visited Poland's most revered monastery home to an ancient Catholic icon believed to work miracles ahead of a trip by tram to meet young pilgrims from the world over. The pontiff is headlining an international Catholic youth extravaganza. Ambulances and fire engines are, however, said to be on standby, with Polish officials taking no chances with security following the jihadist murder of a priest in a French church on the eve of the 5-day trip to celebrate the 2016 World Youth Day. All right, we wrap it up now on KTN Home. Many thanks for joining us, but we continue with the bulletin on KTN News. We will be talking about the eradication of one type of polio, and our in-house health news correspondent, Dr. Mercy Korir, will be joining us with that on more details. And of course, getting over to the County Hall, where the Special Joint Committee on Electoral Reforms continues to get submissions from both CORD and Jubilee, among other stories. Michelle Ngele is also at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Currently, the Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is held up in a meeting with the clergy and other education stakeholders. Will a solution come out of this particular meeting? We will be keeping tabs on that. Do join us on the second bit of this bulletin on KTN News. My name is Akisa Mandera. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.